since it is World Environmental Day and the focus is particularly on plastic, we will mention that we're thinking about you.
Oh, yeah. Environment comes first.
The environment comes first. I mean, without it, we don't really have ground to stand on.
Yeah. See what you did there?
You see that?
Yeah.
Like that? All right. Well, hey, thank you everybody for tuning in to the BTC. Welcome back to season 2.
Season 2.
With your boys.
We back.
Holla.
Holla, holla.
We missed you guys. We were off planning, kicking up dust, working, having fun, doing all sorts of things, putting our brains at ease. And we hope that you've been doing the same thing. It's been an intense 6 months, really.
Here we are, halfway through the year.
Yeah, I mean, we are in June. It is June 5th, World Environmental Day.
Yeah.
As stated previously. And yeah, it's been an intense start to the year. 6 months ago, we were at the beginning of December, and we were waiting for all sorts of changes on the political end and changes in marijuana regulations at that point with the DEA, right? We were waiting for rescheduling hearings back then. I think Emerson called it. He was like, it seems like they're purposefully stalling. And you know what? Spoiler alert, he was right. You got to watch season 1 to check that out. But dude, yeah, they purposefully stalled out twice. Yeah. Judge calls them an abomination. And then there's no other enforcement against them. That's it.
No, that's it.
There's no punishment for not doing what the court says when you're the DEA. That is the precedent that was set there. 2 years of advocacy down the drain. And it really, I think to a lot of people in the cannabis industry, it's like, what just happened? Like, are we not going to talk about this anymore? Like, we were just at the finish line.
Yep.
We were right there. We just needed that little fucking tush push into the end zone. And now that it's still legal, we could have done that. Just a little tush push. That's all we needed. But no, the DEA drops the ball, right? And so 6 months ago, we're talking about a lot of the same things we're talking about today. We hope that you are all doing well and living large and, making it through all of the changes and transitions that we've all been faced with. We've been feeling it too. I think everybody's together. We're all in the same boat on this. And yeah, we hope it's been good. We have a really interesting season ahead for you guys. We're going to be just doing some of our same shenanigans and having fun, bringing secular news, mainstream news, current events, all sorts of shit into the mix. But we have a framework where we will be following a case going on in the cannabis industry right now that's super interesting. And so today with episode 1, we're going to crack into that with you. And without further ado, we're going to get going.
Oh, yeah.
And so, Emerson, I don't know if you know too much about this yet. I have a feeling that you do. We've talked a little bit about it. But there is a cannabis business, Alpine Wellness. Some of you may have heard of it before. Maybe not. But they are going head-to-head with a local municipality, the Town of Telluride, on a renewal application issue, oddly enough.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is as grassroots as it gets right here.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, anyways, to get going on the case, there is a dispute going on with the local municipality and their renewal application, and it involves a question on their licensing form. And the question asks, are you in default on your federal taxes? Okay? And Alpine Wellness has been around for many, many years, 15 years, almost 16 years. And many of us know that federal law says that cannabis is illegal and that there's this tax code out there called 280E. And 280E is designed to penalize criminal drug enterprises. That includes enterprises, cartels, mafias, trafficking a Schedule 1 or Schedule 2 substance. Right now, as I mentioned, the DEA completely dropped the ball, right? Cannabis is still a Schedule 1 substance as we sit here with you today. And so cannabis businesses all over the country have to file as criminal drug traffickers under 280E, criminal tax policy. And so in the town of Telluride, on their renewal application, there's a question. Are you in default on your federal taxes? Number one, the language is not required in the state of Colorado, and it's not required in the Telluride Municipal Code, right? And so now we have a local municipality trying to enforce, or they are weaponizing, federal tax policy against businesses that they said, hey, here's a legal path for you to follow. You can sell cannabis. We will license you. We will take money from you. All the things, right? Mm-hmm. Then it turns out federal government's going to step in. They're going to say, well, they're still criminals, even though they haven't been charged with a crime. And we're going to tax them as if they have been charged with a crime as a criminal enterprise. We're going to tax all their gross revenue. We're not going to let them take business deductions. Granted, there are some deductions they allow in the realm of cost of goods sold, but none of those deductions have anything to do with selling expenses. So that's retail, staff, marketing, administrative, legal. The list goes on. So we're talking about your, a big chunk of your business is not deductible. So it becomes income. And they call that phantom income because it's income that never really existed. And the tax liability that comes from it isn't there to pay back. It's not like there's a treasure chest of this going on. And so anyways, this company, Alpine, they stand up. They say, I'm done being pushed around, man. It's over. I'm pushed back. And they say, this question is self-incrimination. And so we're going to follow this case. It is just being cracked open. It involves the town of Telluride. It involves the state of Colorado. And in the end, it involves the federal government. We got all these government agencies quietly collecting and selectively enforcing. That is a problem. And we want everybody to know about it. We want you to get behind it. It's time for a movement. And so I think we need to kick this off with a little clip from the actual hearing that just took place. I mean, there's a ton of information from January to the end of May about the process that these guys have gone through. But on May 29th, there was a hearing. Mm. And we're going to start off with a clip from that hearing. So hang with us and enjoy this with us. Language does not exist in your code or in the state statutes, it can be removed by your administrative department. Now, here's I brought up some case law. Leary versus United States, 1969, requiring someone to disclose marijuana activity as part of compliance, expose them to federal prosecution. The Supreme Court held that was a constitutional violation. Does anybody have a response to that?
Yeah, that doesn't apply. It was a separate. It wasn't the IRS. It was a separate here. It was a separate federal law that was subsequently repealed.
Well.
Would you look at that?
There's some case law right there for you.
It doesn't apply. It doesn't apply here. And I feel like, that case, Leary versus the United States, Tim Leary, right?
Yep.
We're talking about Timothy Leary versus the United States. I came across this case actually not too long ago, and I was kind of like, oh, shit. I didn't even know that happened. And it happened because I was looking up the Income Tax Revenue Act of 1913.
Oof.
Yeah. And then I was looking up issues in between 1913 and 280E.
For some correspondence.
Yeah, like when 280E was developed, like I think that was like, I want to say 1979. I should have that information. I'll try and have it next time. But I was trying to see what flaws existed because in 1913, in the U.S. Revenue Act, where they were going to tax income tax for the first time, people were outraged.
Oh yeah,
people were outraged. It was like a big deal. And then, time went on and stuff. 1937 comes around and the Marijuana Tax Act is implemented. And if anybody out there has seen one of like the old pharmaceutical bottles that said like cannabis oil or cannabis tincture, that was a part of this time period. And you could buy a tax stamp under the 1937 Marijuana Tax Act, okay? And that would allow you to sell marijuana. Interesting, right?
yeah.
Okay, so years went on. We're talking Timothy Leary now in 1969. He gets busted coming over the border in Mexico with weed, right? That's how this got to the Supreme Court. And he somehow with that, because he spent time in jail for that, but then comes out and then tries this case against the 1937 Marijuana Tax Act. And in the 1937 Marijuana Tax Act, it says that you can apply for a tax stamp, but you first have to prove that you were in possession of marijuana. So in order to get the stamp, you have to say you're committing a crime in the first place.
Yeah.
And so really interesting argument. It has been, I think, used before on a federal level when it comes to the cannabis industry, but it hasn't been used on a municipal level or a state level. And so, I thought that was like a really interesting foundation to kind of build this on. And so, I don't know. And so you guys, we're talking about a renewal form. And if you've ever filled out a government licensing form, you probably didn't think twice about a lot of the questions. But if one of those questions could make you admit to a federal crime, you might think twice about it. And you might ask, does this entity have the right to ask me this question in the first place? And what if answering honestly could get you shut down?
Jeez. Yeah, it seems like it is a trap, They're setting up this type of system where, you have to go through the process. You have to check the boxes, go through all the different steps. But in doing so, and in this case, in relation to federal tax, it's a catch-22 where, you're going through that and you want to answer everything in good faith. But by doing so, you're going to be implicated in some sort of legality agreement that you never really wanted to get tangled up in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, if these cannabis businesses are out there and they're operating and they're licensed and they're legal and they're paying taxes, okay? And everything's fine and dandy, right? As long as all the government agencies are making all of their money, okay? And then the IRS comes around, they say, oh, well, we know these guys haven't been charged with a crime. They haven't been charged outside of the state or inside of the state or any of the places that you would be charged. But we're going to apply this criminal federal tax policy to them, right? And I mean, like, every state's legal framework, like, in order to be a cannabis business, like, you need to be on the books. You need to track your weed. You need to track your inventory. You need to report marijuana sales. All self-incriminating activity. The fact that we have to show compliance with the IRS is self-incriminating compliance. Like, in order to comply with a state or municipal license, if one of the provisions is that you have to comply with the federal government, then the only option is to shut your business down, because complying with the federal government is accepting that it's illegal. And so really interesting. And that's the situation that's playing out in Telluride right now. And so I know it's a little bit lengthy, okay? But if you guys hang with me, I think you will enjoy this. This is the opening statement from the May 29th hearing from Alpine Wellness. And, sit back, enjoy. It's about 3 minutes long. And watch Emerson's reaction video here while I go make sure my kid gets to his play practice on time. So, give this a listen.
Run the clip.
Alpine Wellness, a licensed cannabis business operating in Telluride since 2009. From 2011 to 2021, our license was renewed without controversy under hearing officers Jennifer Fox and Daniel Zemke. Our federal tax status was never cited as a condition of license renewal or concern of compliance. That changed in 2022 under a new interpretation without any change in the law, code, or business structure. Now the town is using that same question, undefined, unsupported, and legally vague as the basis for possible revocation. This question is not required by state law. More importantly, it asks a licensee to affirm or deny a status defined only under federal criminal law, not by the state of Colorado and not by this town. Since 2021, when Mr. Lieberman became the hearing officer of this authority, a question has quietly taken center stage in Telluride's licensing process. Are you in default on your federal taxes? We've tried to explain the legal paradox it creates 3 times since 2021. Once December 29th, 2021. Once January 10th, 2024. And once again, January 16th, 2025. All of those have received 0 response. We've submitted written objections, legal citations, IRS correspondence, and multiple motions for clarification. But rather than addressing those warnings, this authority under Mr. Lieberman's tenure has enforced the question more aggressively and responded to our filings with silence. Today's hearing isn't about Alpine. It's about whether this town, and by extension the state of Colorado, that allows it, is willing to profit from cannabis compliance while using federal illegality as a tool for punishment. This is no longer a business dispute, it's a constitutional conflict. And the consequences of this hearing extend beyond our license to the broader question of whether Colorado will protect the businesses it has legalized. We appear today not just to defend our business, but to challenge the legal and procedural basis of this hearing. This is not compliance, this is entrapment. If this hearing proceeds without first clarifying the meaning of its own form and without addressing our unanswered April 16th motion, then it is not Alpine Wellness that is out of compliance. It is the town that has failed to follow its own process, define its own standards, or respect the limits of its authority. We appear today in good faith, but we reserve all rights under state and federal law. Thank you.
Jeez.
Pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, honestly, as an opening statement, couldn't be more laid out, any more clear, in my opinion. It's just ridiculous to me that it even got to the point where this hearing had to be scheduled and brought into existence. It's wild to me that it's not some sort of theoretical thing that's happening. It's happening right now. That it's in the documentation, but it's such a juxtaposition between what's allowed federally and what's allowed on a state and local municipal level.
Absolutely. And you know what? Like, we started this with the federal government has been sitting on their thumbs. Like, does anybody remember the campaign days? We're talking about legalizing marijuana, Al Roker Jr., Snoop Dogg, Trump's kind of okay with it, Kamala's down to clown. Like, what the hell happened? The DEA goes in, they drop the ball twice, refuse to comply with the court. That's what happened. That's it. That's all. What's going on with that? Someone needs to talk, you know? Can't just sweep that under the rug. Otherwise, it just says, what about the court? Like, you can just not show up to court, not do what the court says. Like, I was under a different impression. And the problem is, as far as that opening statement, as far as what's going on, from what I understand in Telluride, there's no legal basis for it. The question itself, are you in default on your federal taxes? It doesn't exist in the Telluride Municipal Code. The definition of the word default doesn't exist in the Telluride Municipal Code. You know?
Wow.
It's not required by the Colorado law.
Yep.
It's not required by the Marijuana Enforcement Division. But the town has their own position on that, and it is based on language in the Telluride Municipal Code that says they can ask for any information.
Any?
In marijuana law. That's not every industry in Telluride, but in the marijuana code, it says they can ask for any information. And of course, me being who I am, you know, I just want to be like, you know, like, hey, can you ask me for my sexual orientation? Is that part of the relevant factor to you guys? You guys just get to make up what's relevant and what's irrelevant and what can fall under the category of any. You can ask any information, even if it's self-incriminating. That's wild to me.
Yeah.
You know, and after engaging with this hearing and listening, you just hear more and more runaround. You hear Alpine just getting worked to kind of just get tangled up into some sort of weird confession about what is what, and they just continue to repeat themselves. I mean, it went on for an hour and 17 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Of them just grilling.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to listen to the whole hearing because it is like it's a perfect example of not being listened to, not being heard, and a meeting spiraling into an hour and 17-minute long hearing that the taxpayers paid for. You know, there's it's Alpine there, and then there's an assistant town attorney. There is the clerk, and there is the licensing officer for marijuana who is attending. You know what I mean? It's like, it's kind of crazy. And so I feel like, so we just heard opening statements from Alpine. Let's give a listen to like what Telluride, like overall, after all the repetition and all the working and jerking and like spider webbing going on, let's give a clip of what Telluride's position, the town of Telluride, Colorado's position actually is on that opening statement. So enjoy this.
All right. I appreciate that that's the way you view that. I'm focused on the renewing of your license. If you want to do business in the town of Telluride, are you willing to provide us documentation like you referenced? I understand that you need to talk to your tax attorney. That is entirely appropriate. I like that idea. But it needs to be for each individual, for you, Mr. Murphy, right? Yes. Mr. Grady, Mr. Murphy, and Alpine. Where they are in the administrative process. This documentation from the IRS and your tax attorney. That would be fantastic. That's what we are requesting.
Well, okay.
So now we want to, have a federal stance on things. We want to see where things are at federally. But, when it comes to the legality on a federal level, well, we look the other way.
Yeah. I really appreciate that that's the way that you see things. You know what I mean? It's like, you can't make this shit up. And when it comes to something as like sensitive and fragile and in depth as cannabis industry, it's like, if you're a local municipality, you ought to be like making sure that you are staying within your jurisdiction, because you get outside of your jurisdiction, you start enforcing federal law on licensees that the federal government says is illegal. And like, it's kind of weird, right? Like, you're like saying, yeah, do this, and knowingly getting these businesses into a trap, and then being like, we're going to fine you, we're going to suspend you, we're going to revoke your license. I mean, it is wild.
Meanwhile, this is the same Town of Telluride that is collecting revenue, tax revenue off of these businesses. And so how does that look on a federal level for you to be collecting tax revenue, sales tax, etc., on a business that is deemed federally illegal?
Yes, sir. And you know what? I did look this up. It only has to do with the state tax side of it.
Okay.
But since 2014, the state has collected like $2.3 billion
Ooh, with a B?
in tax revenue.
That's a B?
That's a crazy B.
Oof.
You know, and that is at the end of 2024. Okay, 2.3 billion. That 2.3 billion is not penalized by the IRS, and it is not used to protect cannabis businesses from federal scrutiny. It isn't used to help cannabis businesses with 280E liability of the criminal activity that has been approved by the states and approved by the towns who are profiting. Holy smokes, folks. Like that is wild.
That's a lot of money. I mean, money talks, bullshit walks. And that's why all these other states are slowly but surely adopting state legalization, is because of the money and the tax incentives, the tax revenue that comes off of this whole industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, because this whole thing this isn't about a failure to pay taxes. It's not breaking the state law. It's this company is refusing to check a box, and the way the local municipality is forcing them to check the box. There's two ways to answer: yes or no. Mm-hmm. You know, if you answer yes, you are accepting the liability that the IRS says that you have, which is associated to being a criminal drug trafficker, right? And it's a public document. And the requests being made by the town, everything they want submitted, those are all public documents. And it's just pretty wild to me that if you answer yes, you're affirming that you are in fact default on what the IRS says you're in default on within the state of Colorado and within the municipality that has legalized the industry. If you answer no, the municipality and the state could see you as non-compliant and dishonest. Which from my understanding is what Alpine was called for answering no. Isn't that something? So it's kind of a paradox, right? You answer yes, you affirm a crime. You answer no, you become non-compliant and dishonest. So what do? Can you leave it blank? Is leaving it blank or putting an NA option? No, actually, that is not available.
Oh, but I mean, you don't have to check a gender box. You can go NA with that.
You can go NA.
But
I identify as NA.
Yeah. Hey, man. I love a good NA.
Not applicable. Not applicable. But anyways, it turns out that was enough to trigger this hearing. That one question, that one yes or no answer that is seemingly impossible. Right? Because it's like, admit to a crime or you are non-compliant and we won't renew your license is the message that is being received. And
meanwhile, this business has been operating for a decade and a half in good standing and in good faith, but all of a sudden now there's an issue.
And yeah, you know, I feel like here's where things get like a little bit heavier, you know, and there's some like implications throughout this hearing And if you listen to the whole thing, you'll hear the back and forth over it. You will hear this position over that position. But because that little box isn't just awkward, okay, it's potentially unconstitutional, right? If you admit you're in default under a federal criminal law, you're exposing yourself to criminal liability under IRS Code 280E. And so let's just quickly check in to see how that part of it went down at the May 29th hearing in Telluride.
I should not be required to incriminate myself
I guess
on the record.
The incrimination piece. What do you think's going to happen?
What do you mean? I feel like
If you don't provide us this information, you're going to go to jail? That's what. No, you're not.
Not from you. What I'm claiming, if I say yes, that I am actually owning that default, right? If I tell the IRS that yes, that's my liability, then I own it. I don't think you guys even understand how much it would even be to any of these business. But when it comes to not being allowed to deduct any of your business expenses, and then the state government collecting tax on that and the local government collecting tax on that, I think we have a real problem there because we're not getting any protection from you guys. In fact, I'm being scrutinized on my renewal, and it's being conditioned on whether or not I answer yes to a federal tax policy question.
Wow. That's crazy. I mean, it like circles back to that 1969 case. Supreme Court ruled that Leary versus the United States that you can't be forced to incriminate yourself just to comply with federal drug laws. And this had to do with that, as you mentioned, the 1937 Marijuana Tax Act. That's the Fifth Amendment. It was true then in 69, and it's true now. It's kind of wild to all of a sudden there be a fork in the road. And it just seems a little inappropriate for the town of Telluride's representative to imply, well, what do you think is going to happen? You're not going to go to jail.
Right. Easy for you to say.
Yeah.
I said, close your eyes, man. It's going to be fine. Like, what are you smoking? You know, like, I just don't get it. And, you know, like you said, like 1969, this has already been decided by the supremest of courts. All right. Leary versus the United States. Look it up. You know, like the requirement that you had to have possession of marijuana before having the tax stamp was enough for the Supreme Court to say, oh, well, that does violate your Fifth Amendment right, and that is self-incrimination. Now, I get that this doesn't have to do with the federal level. This isn't a federal law. This is a state law. Okay, it's in the state constitution. And so if you were to take Leary versus United States to the federal level right now, the federal government would say, we don't have marijuana licensing. Your states do. Your towns do. Okay, but that doesn't mean that they didn't already rule on this, you know? And I feel like the more I look into it, the more it makes sense, you know? You know what I'm saying?
100%. Yeah. It is up to not only the state's discretion, but the local municipalities. And it is a question, as we circle back around, that states do not require, that local municipalities do not require. It isn't a requirement. And that's where this whole tangled spider web kind of all circles back to, is that they can keep rewording the questioning, but the fact remains the same, that it's self-incriminating and it's not required.
Right. It was true in 1969, and it's true right now. And you know what? Let's peek at what the town of Telluride had to say about that.
I really want you to understand what I'm saying.
I do.
Because the question isn't lawful. And
It is until a court tells us it's unconstitutional, which no court has. It's lawful. and we're going to proceed under that. So to the extent that you don't want to comply with it, it's going to potentially jeopardize your license. I want you to understand that.
I do understand that.
Okay.
But you know what my life
Told us anywhere, anyhow, that our licensing authority code is unconstitutional. Therefore, it's applicable. It's applicable to you.
have you brought it to a court?
What?
Have you brought it to a court?
We don't have to. We have the code. If you think it's unconstitutional, file. It doesn't. It's not going to stay this proceeding.
I don't know what that means. What do you mean?
Right. So you're arguing that we don't have the authority, that there's nothing in the authority that gives us the ability to ask for this information. We appointed you to that. If you think that's unconstitutional, you need to file a claim in the appropriate court.
Okay. And I will if I
Okay,
need
but understand, doing that does not stay this proceeding. It's not going to give you a reprieve. We can still move forward with taking your license if you don't comply with it.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Wow.
So, wow, there's no court that's ruled on it.
Yeah. Well, actually, according to the supremest of Supreme Courts, there has been rulings done.
Yeah. I know. It just blows me away. No court has ever ruled on this. It's like you're being told that, like, in 1969, the only thing going on at that point wasn't just like Bryan Adams writing the summer of '69. Timothy Leary was in the United States Supreme Court showing people that you can't just force self-incrimination on tax-paying businesses. You know what I'm saying?
It's wild.
I got my first real 6-string, bought it at the 5 and dime, played it until my fingers bled. All right, I'll spare you.
Oh man.
So shit, dude. Like instead of listening, right? Instead of removing the language,
Yep.
right? Removing the question from a municipal level renewal application form. We would rather get into a dogfight about this topic, right? You know, the town of Telluride can ask any question they want, and you have to provide any information they ask you for.
Where's the line? Yeah.
And you know what they don't have to do? They don't have to enforce this language because it's not in their code. You know, it's not in the state statute in Colorado. And so instead of removing the question or even responding to the business's legal filings and constitutional claims, the town continues to just press harder. They scheduled this hearing that we're listening to, and, you know, obviously behind closed doors, the message is clear, is that, like, they can bulldoze whoever they want, right? Because of the word any.
Yeah.
But isn't that interesting?
It's extremely vague. It's an all-encompassing, no actual accountability type of code or you know, that they're enforcing. It's just, it's quite ridiculous to me. And the fact that they don't even understand that, no, there has been actual hearings and lawful action taken against this kind of self-incriminating questionnaire that is required, but it's not required. That's the thing. It's extremely interesting, and knowing that it's not required and seeing that there's been change elsewhere is actually kind of inspiring.
Yeah. And I mean, what the message that I'm hearing is, like, basically, you know, they're just saying over and over again that you can change your answer. Yeah.
Seriously, though.
Or you could just give us what we're asking for. Or it's up to you to comply and do what we say. Because God knows, as well as the rest of you, that all of us people smoking weed since 1969 are a bunch of conformists. Right? We're conformists. That's like what we do best. It's up to you to comply and do what we say. It's like that's what people were talking about in hacky sack circles in the 1970s.
Oh, yeah.
Bullshit.
Let's comply with the man, not let's stand up to the man.
Right? And if you don't do what we say, face license suspension, face fines, or revocation. Even if what we say that you need to do is publicly incriminate yourself, publicly answer a question on an application that says, yeah, I did it. Yeah, I owe that. No cannabis business should answer yes to that question. Right now the IRS should be taking 0, right? Because it's federally illegal. And what they really should do is motivate themselves to get off their thumbs, get on the DEA's ass about why they didn't reschedule. Mm-hmm. Am I right? The DEA had an opportunity. The FDA, the United States Public Health Department sent letters to the DEA saying this should be rescheduled. It was like a 2-year process.
It's unanimously decided now that at this point, it is not a Schedule 1 drug. It has medicinal value and benefit. So that being stuck in the mud in itself is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Dude, here's the thing. Is I agree. This is not just a compliance issue. It's an issue of coercion. All right. And it's happening in a town, the town of Telluride, that built its brand on progressive policy and open governance. I mean, just listen to this clip.
All I am focused on is requesting information so we can ascertain whether or not you're compliant with your renewal. That's what we're asking for.
Yeah, well,
The bigger picture is immaterial at this point as far as the town is concerned. Either you want to give us that information or you don't, and that is entirely up to you.
well, I mean, I feel like it's up to us. It would be as easy as removing the language from your application. In fact, we just did that in Norwood.
Great.
Just like-
If you want to come to the town council and at public,
It doesn't even need to go. It's not in the code.
it is in the code.
It is not in the code that federal tax policy, federal tax default is required in the Telluride marijuana code. It can be moved by administrative staff. And when Norwood removed it, they contacted the MED, and the MED said that's fine. It's not in our statutes either. And so I'm getting a little testy about the fact that you guys are forcing me to disclose information and fill out applications in a way that's unlawful.
It's not unlawful. We have the ability to make different rules, and we're doing so.
It was the same app. They adopted your application.
And then they modify it, which they have the authority to do.
Well, I feel like
Well,
you guys do have that.
And so now you're subject to it.
And so
Yeah.
now I'm subject to it, but I don't know that it's lawful.
Well, you're welcome to challenge that in an appropriate venue, which is a court of law, not here.
Okay.
Oh. Well. Change has happened.
It has, man. I mean, it's the biggest thing in there is we make the rules. Are you hearing that message?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, I guess to a certain extent, a local municipality and a state can make rules, but we all exist under the federal umbrella, right?
Yep.
The U.S. Constitution,
Yep.
right? Which I feel like it's kind of important,
That's the highest court in the land.
right? It's important.
So
But-
it really isn't about the tax form, is what I'm hearing. It's more about them exercising their power and to what extent they're willing to continue to just ignore legal facts, happenings in other municipalities that have changed, the requirement for questioning. It's really not about the tax code or forms. It is about their power and the overreach of that. The ability of a local government to invent conditions that don't exist in law and punish people for not acknowledging or resisting them. It's wild.
And maybe more than that, it's about what's happening when no one stops it, right? Silence replaces oversight. When licensees are trapped between federal enforcement and local indifference, Like, that's the story we're starting with. You know what I mean? Like, how come the state isn't intervening? How come the local municipality in Norwood sees the big picture? Which, if I don't know if you've looked into that hearing, but I believe that the town of Norwood, Colorado, this little community outside of Telluride, 45 minutes away, took the same information, the same meeting. A speech was given by Alpine Wellness, and they called the language double jeopardy, entrapment, got unanimous votes across all board members, with one board member saying, in the spirit of 1776, I motion to strike that language from our renewal application.
Wow.
Like, holy smokes. Just down the road,
Yep.
we got this progressive community in Telluride pushing people into a corner and telling them it's our way or the highway, and it doesn't matter what the question is. All that matters is that you answer it. That's kind of crazy. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, totally. I mean, you're right that the board and just the nearby neighboring town unanimously agreed to remove and revoke that question because of just what you mentioned, right? The board members themselves quoting that it is entrapment and double jeopardy, that answering that question is not required, and so it was abolished.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would encourage anybody to listen to the Town of Norwood meeting minutes. You can find them at norwoodtown.com and just find the meeting minutes from the board meeting, okay? And go to the speech. It's at like 18 minutes in. Listen to what happened there. Listen to what's happening here in Telluride. It's such a crazy contrast. You know, like the fact that this case could go two ways, right? Alpine could lose, right? And if Alpine loses, it just proves that cannabis industry doesn't have any rights, that this whole thing is built on sand, on the municipal level, on the state level. Because the state level, it's like, how come the state's not getting involved in this? They're receiving all of the information about it. It is language that is self-incriminating, that Telluride has no right to be using, that other municipalities are removing that adopted the actual application from Telluride, but we have state silence. And it's like the state's not protecting us from that, from a municipal government weaponizing federal criminal tax law against its businesses. And they're also not protecting us from federal scrutiny. They're just collecting money. And so it's like, at one point in time, they said, here's a legal pathway. And then the federal government said, you're criminals. And we all got taxed as criminals. And the states and the towns are all collecting money. We're left holding the bag of liability. Spoiler alert, in the end, the roof's going to collapse on the industry, on the business owners, and on the people, unless we stand up and say something about it, unless we get out there and we make a difference. And, you know, I feel like at the end of this is a great episode 1. We are so fucking glad to have you guys back with us. We've missed you. In the next episode, we're going to find out what happens when you refuse to lie to the government. Isn't that some shit? We're going to figure out what happens when you refuse to lie to the government. And so stick with us. This is going to be a good season. We got more coming at you. We hope you're doing well, and we're going to be doing our best to stay connected and stay right here with you along the way. This is your spot to follow this case. And we'll try and, we'll try and be kind of cheeky and fun all along the way, because we fucking love you. And what else you got, Em?
Hey, I know it's going to be a hell of a season. We got a lot coming at you. We got some really great news, some merch, some updates. So just stay tuned. Stick with us. We got a whole lot more to go through and some great stuff to uncover. And hey, we're here to bring it to you. We're Break the Cypher.
Break the Cypher, baby. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, X. Most of those are at Break the Cypher. But if you're looking for us on X, it's at break hyphen. No, what's that? Underscore the Cypher. Break underscore the Cypher. And then on YouTube, we are at Break the Cypher podcast. You can find us at www.breakthecipher.com. If you want to donate to us, we would love that. We are here for you. We are trying our best to stay commercial free because it's annoying, but we're not above it. So you guys get on that website, donate now, please, or you can visit our online store. Right now, we only have coffee cups available, but if you had one, you would be the coolest coffee drinker that has ever been known. And so, but we'll have some t-shirts and things and posters. And so look us up, follow us. We're trying to do cool things out there, and we want to spend some time with you. So without further ado, I'm going to say goodnight. We're going to go have some dinner, smoke a little bit of weed, and we'll see you soon.
Till next time.
Peace.
Peace.